Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Overpowering Emotions, where I talk all things big emotions, emotion regulations. I have been going back and listening to the past couple of episodes. I have major brain fog happening. I have been feeling under the weather, and yeah, hopefully these actually are making sense to you because I feel like I get all muddly with my words, and these are really big concepts. So if there's ever anything that didn't make sense to you, I wasn't clear, feel free to reach out and ask me because I know that these are really important skills that we're talking about, strategic emotion management for kids. And there's lots to think about. And even just if you feel stuck implementing things, I'm happy to help. I've had a couple of questions. I might actually do a whole episode just on some of the implementation questions I've been receiving. So I'm still talking about the strategic emotion management. This is the process that helps kids build emotional metacognition. So being able to think about their feelings in a way that helps them manage emotions more skillfully over time. So far, just to recap, if you haven't been listening to the past few episodes, first we need to make sure kids are able to recognize and label their emotions. That's really important. And the more specific they can get, the better. Also, body mapping, identifying those body cues, where in their body those are coming up. Then they can learn to appraise the situations that are triggering those emotions. So it's not even about the situation, it's about how they're interpreting events, right? And how those interpretations are shaping how they feel. And then last week, I was really talking about evaluating the emotional experience itself. And so we ask kids, what is that emotion trying to tell you in that moment? And is that emotion being helpful right now or not? That evaluation helps them choose the most helpful strategies. Ultimately, that's where we want to get our kids to choose the best behaviors in this moment. Before we do that, though, there's a key piece of psychoeducation that's really important that is happening, that you understand it, that they understand. To truly retrain anxious, overwhelmed, or just emotionally sensitive or overly reactive brains, kids need to have new experiences to retrain their emotional brain. It's really important for them to understand everything that we're talking about. So today is really about helping build that bridge between reflect emotions and strategically choosing what to do with those emotions. Because if we want to change a behavior, we need the brain to learn something new. And that's only happening through experience. And that's why I don't spend a lot of time talking and trying to do all the cognitive reframing. That's not where brains change. They're going to change through experience. Now, it's helpful to get a little more nitty-gritty with understanding emotions in a little bit more. I feel like I've really deconstructed them so much over the past month or so, but really emotions are a constructed process. And so that means that when a kiddo feels anger or sadness or even happiness, it's not triggered and then expressed. That kiddo's brain, it's constantly constructing these experiences through different sensory inputs. So there's internal bodily sensations, there's their past experiences, and that's really what I'm going to focus on today. I know I talked about, picking the best strategy, but this is really important to know. Our brain is a prediction making machine. And so kids need lots of experiences and a lots of the right kind of experiences to be able to pull from to make good predictions of what's coming up. This is why avoidance is so problematic because they never have the experience to pull from that, hey, I can manage going to school, or that, hey, I can write the test. And even if I fail, I'm still going to be loved by my family and still going to have friends. This is really important for us and for them to understand. Their developing brains are actively involved in creating the emotions they experience. Now, I've already talked about this when, we're looking at our thoughts, but it's so much more than that. It's not just our thoughts. We really need to understand this point. The brain is a prediction making machine. Otherwise, we're never really going to get everyone on board with getting kids to do hard things. And this might be helpful for you. If you think about it, the brain is pretty isolated, it's all alone in the skull. right? It can only know the world through the signals it's receiving through the sensory surfaces of the bodies. So, our senses, right? Our eyes, our ears, our skin. When the brain interprets a signal, it's not just like passively sitting back and receiving information. It's not like a camera or a microphone, right? It's an active predictive organ. It's constantly trying to make sense of all of the information that's coming in. But if it's only receiving the outcomes, so the signals themselves, not the direct causes of those signals, it needs to guess, right? And that's all that is happening. Ooh, I feel pain. I have no idea what that pain's from, right? Unless we're using integrated sort of things, but it's really not understanding the direct causes. So it's making a guess about what caused those signals based on past experiences to reduce uncertainty. And that's why it's always constantly making predictions because there's so much uncertainty. So for example, if you hear a large bang, your brain doesn't necessarily immediately know it's a car door slamming or it's thunder or a gunshot. And since our brain was built to help us survive, its guesses are going to be based on making sure that we stay alive. It's going to make its best immediate guess in the moment. It's not going to wait around to see. So it's going to use the context. If we're in an unfamiliar place, loud bang, gunshot, right? Versus in our, it's 4:30, kids are coming home from school, loud bang, well, maybe they're slamming the door. So the guess is an action plan. Whatever that guess that the brain is going to make, it's specifically a motor plan. The guess is preparing us for action. It is not intellectual. It's immediately preparing our body internally. This is known as the visceral motor plan. So it's coordinating all of our internal organs, our heart rate, our breathing, our blood pressure, and there's the external skeletal motor plans. That's preparing us to move our limbs. So if we hear a loud bang, our brain doesn't immediately know what it is. So it's quickly going to guess and prepare for action, like running or hiding under something, right? Its main job is to guess what are those signals? What do they mean? So that it can help us survive. And so we have to react in that way. So our experience of that bang comes from that preparation. And so there's not even time, and especially in a situation like that, there's not even time to think. It has nothing to do with our appraisal of the situation. Our brain is automatically making those guesses. What you feel is intrinsically linked to what your brain is preparing itself to do. So, experience comes from that action preparation. As our brain creates one of those motor action plan, it's simultaneously sending out exact copies of those motor signals to the parts of the brain that handles sensory information as predictions of sensations that are about to happen. So, those brain predictions are telling the sensory areas, hey, if we do this action, this is what we can expect to feel or see or hear next. It's like the brain is setting us up, it's sending this expectation for what the world should feel like, what the body should feel like if the guess is correct. In other words, the brain guesses what we're going to see, feel, or hear as a result of our actions before it even happens. So let's say you've been in your bedroom lots of times, probably, unless you just moved into a new house. Your brain has a model of that room. You expect your bed to be in a certain place. Every time you walk in, you're expecting your bed to be in a certain place. If everything is expected, nothing surprising happens. Nothing changes in the brain. Everything just stays the same. You just keep on going, right? There's nothing to alarm our brain. We just keep on going through our day. However, if there's a mismatch, if the actual signals are different from what the brain predicted, that's called an error of prediction. So, those prediction errors are super important teaching signals. I have a whole workshop just on teaching how we can use this on maximizing learning, right? It's when we make our mistakes that our brain is like, oh, this is different. This is a mismatch based on what I expect. Now we're super focused, super alert, best able to learn. But that's a different workshop for another day. So these teaching signals, they're telling our brain its guess was wrong and that it needs to update its understanding of the world or our body for the next time. So, again, those errors are what drive learning, but it's helping the brain make better guesses in the future. So if you walk into your room and you found that the bed is missing, the difference between what you expected and what you actually see creates a prediction error that your guess was wrong. And so the signals telling the brain reality didn't match the prediction. And so the brain is updating its understanding of the world. So the learning is only happening when signals are not anticipated. So that's important for learning. But what does this have to do with anxiety? An anxious child's brain errs on the side of danger and most often predicts something bad is going to happen if I stay here. So that prediction triggers fear. And so if staying here is going to be dangerous, their instinct is to what? Run away. And if they do run away, well, then they're going to feel better. Immediately, they're going to have an immediate reduction in their distress, relief, phew. That outcome matches the brain's initial prediction of danger in the first place, the prediction of danger and planned action of avoidance. So the brain is saying danger and escaping right now keeps me safe and makes me feel better. All of that is confirmed. So the brain's saying, yep, see, it was dangerous. I expected that was going to happen, and I expected the running away would reduce the fear and make me feel better, and it did. So when those actual signals coming in from our body are matching what our brain predicted, those signals are confirmed. They don't need to travel very far in the brain or cause a big reaction, right? Because they just confirm what the brain was already expecting. But no new learning is happening here because the brain guessed that avoidance is going to feel good. The brain isn't learning anything new. And because that prediction was right, the well, first of all, if that prediction's right, any other prediction that if I stay, it's going to be terrible, that's also confirmed, right? So it's just reinforcing staying terrible, can't do it, can't handle it. Running away, fantastic, going to feel better. All of those are confirmed. So their successful avoidance reinforces the brain's anxious predictions. It's teaching the brain that the feared situation is dangerous and that running away is the correct thing to do and the most adaptive response. That avoiding is the only way to be safe. And if they keep avoiding, they keep reinforcing that prediction over and over and over again. But it's only quick short-term relief, isn't it? Kids end up with this vicious cycle where avoidance, despite, you know, the drawbacks. So let's say it's avoiding school, avoiding sleepover, avoiding hanging out with friends. We are just, that brain is reinforcing and confirming its story. And so it's just strengthening and maintaining that anxiety over time. Now, the feared situation itself was never actually dangerous in the moment. Going into school is never dangerous in the moment. Now, obviously, if there's like a predator there or bullies there or something like that, we're going to talk about something different. But if they're never going to their sleepover or going to their friend's house or doing these things, going up to the second floor of the house all by themselves, right? If they're never confronting it, their brain never gets a chance to learn that. And as a result, the original scary prediction, this is dangerous, never gets corrected. Kids continue to believe that they escaped true harm thanks to running away or thanks to ensuring you were with them. And that just keeps the anxiety cycle going. And over time, that makes the world smaller and smaller and smaller. And we see this, right? In the classroom, maybe they just stop answering questions and then they stop talking at all. And then they stop going to the classroom at all. And then they stop going to school at all. And now they're never leaving the house at all. The world just gets smaller and smaller. Everything gets scarier because avoidance becomes the go-to coping strategy. And therefore, their brain is never learning new ways to handle that fear. And so, what might start with being a little bit worried, right? Worried about something simple like being called on in class, it leads to all of those, it just spirals. And so it just gets smaller, and it's this negative reinforcement, meaning that we are removing something unpleasant. In this case, removing the feared situation or removing the discomfort of being called on in class or having to go into class. And that temporary relief, it's reinforcing the avoidance behavior, and it makes them more likely to use avoidance again. And so this vicious cycle just happens, right? So it looks like this. The trigger, right? Kids encounter something scary. Maybe it's seeing a dog or just walking into class late, and now everybody's looking at them. They experience physical symptoms. So my heart starts racing. I feel sick to my stomach, and those frightening thoughts. Okay, so they have that experience. That leads to avoidant behavior. Now they're going to escape. They're going to avoid the situation. They're going to run away from the dog, or they're going to leave the classroom, go home. They're going to do whatever they can to stop the feeling. Next, because they've avoided it or they feel a better immediately, they get that short-term relief. They feel safer, they feel calmer. The bad feelings go away for now. That avoidance and that relief is reinforcing. And so now the brain learns avoiding made me feel better. I was right to be afraid. It's confirming the brain's original prediction that the situation was unsafe and that only running away kept them safe in the first place. And now they get stuck there with the long-term consequences because they're never actually facing the situation. They're never collecting new evidence to prove that fear wrong. So the next time they're in a similar situation, they're in with a dog, they have to go into the classroom, the brain's going to predict danger again and maybe even more intensely. And the child is going to feel even more compelled to avoid again. And the cycle repeats and repeats and repeats, potentially worsening things over time. So avoidance is just a trick. It's tricking the brain into feeling safe in the moment, but it's locking in that belief that the world is dangerous and that I can't handle it. So if they're always avoiding, all these situations, we are maintaining prolonged anxiety. We're keeping the anxiety disorder going, and we are fueling it if we are allowing them to always avoid or if we're always trying to make them feel better. It's only when kids actually face their fear that they can break that cycle and teach their brain something new. We cannot convince them. There's no talking in the world that is going to teach that brain anything new. When a child confronts a feared situation and the predicted bad outcome doesn't happen, the actual incoming sensory signals, i.e., I'm safe, that wasn't so bad, it's not matching the brain's anxious predictions. And so if you've got a kiddo who's terrified of dogs because they predict every dog in the world is going to bite them, and you get them interacting with lots of different dogs, and each one is a safe encounter, that's going to violate the kid's fearful expectation that every dog is going to bite me. The dog doesn't bite, nothing bad occurs. This mismatch creates errors of prediction. Errors of prediction are important for learning because they act as those teaching signals to tell the brain, whoa, my guess was wrong. The outcome I expected didn't actually happen. I need to update my understanding for next time. It's only through that process the brain is going to learn to make better, less anxious predictions in the future and reduce uncertainty about the situation. So this new information forces the brain to update its model. The child forms a new prediction, like, actually, you know what? There's a lot of dogs that are safe. There's a lot of dogs that are not going to bite me. So hopefully you can see why exposure is so important. Right? Why letting kids sit in their feelings and manage it on their own. I mean, we're there to co-regulate and to validate, but we don't have to be in there giving them strategies because they're never going to learn that I can handle it. I can manage it. I don't need to get rid of them right away. This is so important. For all ages, maybe having a feeling tunnels metaphor. That can be really helpful to explain why avoidance doesn't work and why emotion regulation requires going through the experience, facing it head on. right? So maybe you can imagine, and this is what the metaphor is, just imagine you're standing in front of a long, dark tunnel. And that tunnel represents a big feeling. Doesn't matter what the feeling is. It could be sadness or anger or fear or disappointment or rejection, whatever it is. It looks really dark and scary inside, really uncomfortable. You don't know how long it is. You don't know how long it's going to last if you go into that tunnel. And there's going to be an immediate temptation to avoid it, where you think, oh, maybe I can climb over it, right? Pretending that the feeling isn't there. Maybe I can go around it, distracting myself forever. Maybe I can run away from it. That's avoiding the situations, right? But in reality, we can't climb over or go around or avoid those tunnels. If you don't go through it now, that tunnel's still going to be there waiting for you next time, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time, and a lot of times. And every time it's just going to seem even longer and even scarier. I'm always telling kids, time is your worst enemy. It's just like, I'll watch kids. If you've heard this analogy before, I apologize, but I'll watch kids at the summertime we go to cliffs. I know the kids who are going to jump in immediately. It's the kids who don't go to the edge. They're way back, away from the edge, getting undressed, getting their bathing suit, ready, and they just run and jump without looking. It's the kids who come up, take a couple steps back, and then they come up and they look over the edge and they take a couple steps, and they look over the edge and they take a step. Like, it's very rare that they're actually going to jump. Time is your enemy, right? Every time you come up, it gets longer and scarier. The only really helpful option is to go through it now. When you step into the tunnel, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's really dark. It's pitch black at first. That's the most uncomfortable part of the feeling of the emotion. Now it might even grow, right? That fear and that discomfort while you're in the tunnel might grow really big initially. You really want to turn away. You don't know what else is in here. Maybe there's a creature, a cougar or something, and could eat you, right? If you stop or try to run away, you're just going to stay stuck in the dark though, because you don't know how far you've come and you don't know what's on the other side. But if you keep walking, you're always going to come out on the other side. That's how feelings work. They don't last forever. I don't know how long they're going to last. If we don't keep re-triggering it, we do know they only last about 90 seconds, panic attacks up to 10 minutes, right? As long as we're not re-triggering and re-triggering, it's usually because an adult is trying to give us strategies. But if you run away and go back, I mean, that tunnel's just going to get longer. But you do need to let yourself go through them and go through that discomfort and the uncertainty. And if you keep walking, you might notice it slowly starts getting lighter. And eventually you reach the other side. You might feel a little bit more in control. You might feel a little, woohoo, I just did that. You might feel a huge relief. Whew. But that metaphor is really helpful to teach kids that truly the only way out of whatever it is that they're feeling is through it. Now, I've talked a lot about how emotions are like waves or weather. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. And some days are sunny and happy and calm. Some days are cloudy, sad, low energy. Some days are stormy, anger, frustration. Just like weather, feelings are not permanent. They come, they change, and they eventually pass, even those big storms. Avoidance interrupts that natural cycle of I know I can cope with it, right? It keeps emotions stuck, is what it does. That's what avoidance does. It keeps emotions stuck. So by letting ourselves walk through, so feeling the emotion, that emotion with mindful acceptance, we're allowing our brain to complete its natural course and the emotions to complete its natural course without inserting any other stories. With the younger kids, you can use toys or a blanket tunnel and actually talk about it, right? How it's like their sad, angry tunnel. And if you try to jump out early, you might get stuck. But if you keep crawling, you'll come out on the other sunny side. As they get older for tweens, maybe you're drawing out a tunnel with a storm cloud on one side and a sunshine on the other. Or just blue skies. Like, just think of that. When we might be leaving the ground on an airplane through turbulence and major storms, but as soon as we get up through those clouds, it's always a blue sky. It's always up there, right? Maybe they're writing out angry, sad, scared at the dark entrance, and then whatever at the other end, proud and relieved, or whatever at the exit. And then we can ask them, what helps you keep walking through that tunnel? For teens, I mean, use that metaphor with journaling or some of the Socratic questioning if they don't want to write. What tunnels are you avoiding? What would it take for you to walk through that tunnel? We really want to link it to distress tolerance, right? Like acceptance, radical acceptance. Okay, it's here, it's feeling really uncomfortable, but I'm going to still keep walking. The brain is constantly creating categories of possible futures and possible actions based on the similarity of current signals to past experiences. So I've talked about this lots. Kids need lots of the right experiences. Over lots of repeated exposures, the brain's threat prediction, it's getting weaker and weaker compared to the new learning that the child is having. Their brain is learning and the child's fear is decreasing. This is called extinction learning because the feared outcome isn't materializing, right? If they're avoiding again and again, well, the feared outcome is always going to be there. But if they keep going through that tunnel and just seeing there's nothing on the other side, right, that signal gets weaker and weaker. So the more that their fears don't come true, even if they do come true, they learn I'm still breathing. I still have a family. I still have a roof over my head. I did survive it. The more powerful that learning becomes. I've been talking about the degree of surprise really matters, and this is sort of why. The bigger the shock, like your bed not being there is a bigger shock, right? A big positive surprise could be, wow, that dog was actually friendly, right? We could have, but the bigger surprise, the more your brain is going to learn or really pay attention. So a positive surprise might be, wow, this dog is awesome. And now we're going for ice cream, right? That's going to teach the brain way more than a tiny one. So the more unexpected an event is, the stronger the brain's update, the more it's going to learn from that event. And that's how we gradually refine our understanding of the world. Our brain makes guesses, and when those guesses are wrong, it learns to make bigger ones for next time. And that's why I really like having kids to make predictions. What do you think is going to happen when we go do this thing? When you go to the sleepover or whatever it is. And we're going to test those predictions so kids can see the difference and write them down, take some data. What was your predictometer saying and what actually happened? Look at the difference between what they were expecting and the actual outcome. We want new learning to happen, that this is not as dangerous as I thought, right? That's going to be a weaker old fear. We want the new learning to be stronger than that old fear. And it's not just about feeling less afraid. They might still feel afraid of that specific situation, but they're gaining confidence in their ability to cope. I know I can handle this. I still don't like tests, but I know I can still write it. I don't still love dogs, but I know that I can go to the park with my friends and not freak out, right? So when kids are confronting the hard things, they're giving the brain the corrective experiences that they need to recalibrate its predictions about threat. Their brain is learning a new recipe for action. So, for example, the physical arousal, like a pounding heartbeat, they might relabel that from fear, run away, to determination. It's going to allow me to engage with the situation rather than run away. And over time, the anxious brain is shifting from that over predicting danger to making more accurate, probably calmer predictions. So the next time they encounter the situation, they remember the new evidence. Oh, I got through this before. Nothing bad happened. I might actually be okay this time. I don't know. I'm still nervous, but I'm going to go see. This is the essence of learning, right? And it's the essence of learning to manage anxiety. We're replacing those catastrophic expectations through with realistic ones through lived experience, not from us reframing the situation when we're already feeling calm and they can do. They need those past experiences to be able to do it in the moment. It's so important for everyone to understand. We got to stop giving unhelpful avoidance-based accommodations for kids because they're never giving their brain the experiences it needs to learn. Avoidance works instantly to calm them down in the moment, but that's teaching the brain that the fears were justified, avoidance was necessary, and you couldn't handle it any other way. That's that negative reinforcement loop. We got to get out of that. It's teaching the brain the wrong thing. They need experiences. They need experiences. They need experiences, a lot of experiences. Facing fear head on. It's the only way to get through to the brain and to teach the brain. Experience is the best teacher to teach the brain that their overestimated threat response was overestimated and that I can survive the challenge. So it's only through those experiences and practice that they can recalibrate the brain's predictions and build resilience and emotion regulation skills. So really, that's it. So we need to start thinking of these challenges and frightening predictions as new lessons. So maybe that can help you get over your heart, worried heartstrings, right? You want to make kids feel better. I know we all want to make kids feel better. It's horrible when they're having panic attacks and not feeling great, but their brain needs to learn. Maybe I'm safer and stronger than I thought. That's the foundation for healthier emotion regulation going forward. Because if you're always there to save them, they're never learning that. Now, I focused on anxiety here, but this predict, error, learn mechanism is a key in how we deal with all emotions. It doesn't matter. It's not just anxiety. Many emotions can lead to an urge to avoid or escape, especially if they're uncomfortable. And so the lesson is going to be the same. Avoiding an emotion might feel better in the moment, but it's preventing the brain from learning something new about how to handle that emotion in the long run. And this is why we still see adults who are losing their mind in traffic, for example. They don't have good emotion regulation. So if we're always avoiding or suppressing or, whatever it is that we're doing in the situation that frightens us or angers us, again, we're getting short-term relief, but we're never giving ourselves a chance to learn that the situation is manageable. Doesn't matter what the emotion is, right? A lot of people, even adults, are trying to avoid sadness or loneliness or other painful feelings by numbing themselves or distracting themselves. It could be video games or overeating or drinking or binging or whatever, right? Whatever unhealthy coping mechanism to escape that feeling. It's only temporary relief. It's superficial. When the distraction or the numbing wears off, those sad feelings or whatever is going to come back. So if we're always avoiding the feeling, the brain's never learning you can survive the sadness. You can find comfort in healthier ways. So if you face the emotion, acknowledge it, be with it. We're learning that the wave of sadness passes or anger, whatever it is, and we can tolerate it, right? So it's important for us just as much as it is for kids. That experience is the prediction error for the brain. I thought I couldn't handle it, but I did. That's where resilience is taught. Over time, those mistakes make those emotions less overwhelming. It's building the emotional regulation ability. Okay, so that's really important. Anger, conflict, right? If kids are avoiding any confrontation, they might, for example, never tell a friend that they're upset by something that they said to them. In the short run, avoiding that conflict keeps things calm, but the underlying issues never get resolved. And maybe kids start developing resentment over the years or misunderstandings. All of these things can build. Look in relationships in your own life. Usually leads to a bigger emotional blow up later on. That brain's prediction might be if I'm bringing up this problem, it's just going to be terrible. I can't do it. They're not going to like me. But we're never testing that prediction. They're never learning constructive ways to handle disagreements, right? Maybe if they can address that conflict or be with that conflict, maybe they can find the outcome isn't as disastrous as they feared. Maybe their friend apologizes or compromises or does things differently. So that positive outcome is going to violate the expectations of doom and gloom. It's teaching us that conflict is manageable and maybe even healthy. And you know what? Maybe the worst outcome does come and it does blow up. Well, maybe that wasn't a friendship we wanted to have in the first place or in the long run. So we're building confidence in regulating whatever, fear and conflicts, anger and conflicts, rather than always shutting down. So these are just a few examples, but the common theme is really that emotional growth comes from tolerating and learning from those feelings, not running away from them. Our brain needs to refine its predictions about the emotions the same way as with fears. Experiencing the situation, seeing exactly what does happen, and if we predict I won't be able to handle this and then we do handle it, our brain updates and becomes less reactive the next time. So we're focusing on distress tolerance, facing our feelings, facing these hard situations to generate the healthy kind of prediction errors that help the brain learn and improve that emotion regulation, right? So it's helpful for kids to know that their brain is constantly predicting, guessing, and only updating when there is an error. So, this entire process is what gives rise to our general feelings or affect, like pleasantness or unpleasantness, feeling worked up or feeling calm. More specific emotions like anger, sadness, or, the story the brain tells itself about what caused those general feelings and what actions we should take in response. It's helpful for kids to know that their everyday experiences and everyday emotions are a construction of their brain based on those best guesses and adapting based on the new information it's receiving. So, because the brain is constantly making predictions and preparing actions, what we experience as an emotion comes from our brain getting ready for those actions. So, it's not just labeling an existing feeling, it helps to shape the experience itself. So, it's helpful for kids to know that their everyday experience and emotions are based on, that the information it's receiving. So if we hear a kiddo say, I'm angry, it's not because anger's stored in a file somewhere in their brain. It's because their brain has constructed that emotion based on body cues, past experiences, contextual meaning, all compressed into one label. And that's kind of important here. We can change those predictions. That's why naming emotions, reflecting on them, and shifting how we interpret those body signals can really change our emotional experience. There isn't one single emotion system in our brain. Emotions really emerge from the constant, active sort of teamwork of many different parts of the brain and different processes working together. It's a dynamic process, it's not a simple on and off switch. Emotions are not fixed internal states. And because the brain is constantly making predictions and preparing actions, what we experience as an emotion comes from our brain getting ready for those actions. So it's just understanding. I know I've been really repetitive, but I think that's really helpful to hear it repeatedly because that's where learning happens. But it's important for kids to be able to develop emotional flexibility and regulation because they can start to see those internal experiences, are not things that happen to them. They're opportunities for their brains to construct meaning to plan for adaptive decisions. Lots to think about. This is probably an episode you're going to have to re listen to a couple of times before you can talk about it. And I do recommend that. Pretend you're teaching kids, right? And then go back and listen to it again because understanding it is so important for the work that we're going to be getting into in the coming weeks. This is really a foundational piece. And so that's why I wanted to insert it here. I was going to do it earlier on, but then I figured it would be forgotten by the time we'd actually need to use it again. So lots to think about. Reach out if you do have any questions. Help those kiddos be bold and courageous, and I will see you next time.